Hello everyone and welcome to IT Showcase Online. This is our second webinar of the day and my name is Ashley Jones. I will be your host and presenter for today. For our second session, I'm really pleased to invite Phil Nicholls to talk about why software subscription is the right way to go. It's a great talk. I'm really looking forward to this one. And just before we get into it, I want to run you through a few things to do with Zoom, just so you can make the most out of your session. So we use Zoom in a couple of different ways. You're probably well familiar with it by now, so I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs, but please just bear with me on this one. If you hover your mouse over the screen, you'll see a little toolbar come up and you can use the chat. In there, you can talk to me and any of the other organizing team about today's event. So if you could start by just saying hello in there, so I know I'm not talking to an empty room and a camera in our office, that would be great. Great, thank you very much. And separate to that, there is the Q&A function. So in that, if today's talk brings up any questions that you'd like me to ask Phil at the end of the session, please pop them in there, separate to the chat, so it's nice and clear, and I can get on and ask those at the end. So today's presentation is about 20 to 25 minutes in length, so grab a coffee, make yourself relaxed and enjoy it. We are recording the session, so if you want to review it at a later date, you can do. We'll send those to you by email over the next few days or the next week. And that's, I think, about everything. So without further ado, I'd really like to invite Phil Nicholls to the stage to begin his presentation.
Hi, well, first of all, thank you very much, Ashley, for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation today. So good morning to everyone. Thank you for attending the presentation on why a move to software subscription may be a wise move. So let me just share the screen so we can get straight into it. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that okay. So software subscription. Whilst there are undoubtedly many types of software that subscription pricing can apply to, I will show my hand here and obviously identify the experience that we have to draw on directly here at Meditech is based on the ERP market. Let me just get the presentation moving. Right, so first of all, a little bit of an introduction to Meditech UK. My name, as mentioned before, is Phil Nicholls. I'm the Managing Director at Meditech in the UK. We've been established for since 2001. We focus absolutely completely on happy customers. That is what our mission and our focus is all about. We operate in the ERP space, mainly for small to medium-sized businesses, but at the end of the day, we recognise absolutely that the best chances for revenue for our organisation is when we have happy customers. We are focused absolutely on the long term, and we also have an international view. We aren't just providing ERP solutions to the UK market. We operate all around the world. We are Priority's only gold partner. So Priority Software, very innovative software products, very flexible software product, and Meditech as a whole is the only gold partner. So we are absolutely the primary implementer and provider of Priority around the world. We as an organization have offices in Israel, the UK, Australia, and the US. So when I talk about an international view, you can see we have that. And of course, we have many customers with many offices and operations all around the world. So it's not just where we have offices, we also supply systems all around the globe. We have over 1,500 customers, so there is a significant customer base that we can draw on and we can work with. We do operate as a one-stop shop for our customers. So yes, we are providing an ERP solution, but it's not just that. We of course have customers with web shops, with lots of different other pieces of software in their operations, and of course we integrate with those and provide hardware, provide database administration expertise as well. We are completely self-sufficient as an organisation, and we do a lot of work in developing priority standard add-ons. So it's not just about having a very broad system, but it's being able to add to that system as well. So let's get onto the subject at hand. First of all, let's have a little word about how software is sold. Just a little bit of an economist view, really. Software has grown up over many years. And in really the first age of software, what you might describe as being a pre-Gates era, software really didn't even exist. Of course, it existed in that that there were software commands, but as a business model, software didn't really exist. Back in the days of early computing, each mainframe computer, as there were only mainframes available then, of course, every mainframe was unique, and therefore so was the software on it. The software was seen as an integral part of the hardware. One could not exist without the other, and therefore each was inextricably tied to each other. So effectively they were one product. With the entrance of Microsoft to the marketplace, of course, hardware became standardized, consumerized, and software became portable, and therefore it became a product in its own right. Now, I would suggest that we are moving into a maturity of the industry. So with the miniaturization of computing devices, there's an explosion of demand for these devices and for the software that can run on them and control them. Standardization has produced an explosion also in the supply base for software, which inevitably leads to unbounded variety and choice, plus the need to seamlessly and effortlessly change between rival software offerings. So what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about what is the difference really between the historical perpetual license model that's been evident in the ERP industry and a lot of other software sectors as well, against the much more modern subscription licensing. So just a little bit of a definition. Perpetual licensing is one-off purchase of the rights of the use of the software, usually accompanied by the payment of an annual maintenance charge. So there'll be an upfront cost to the software and then an annual maintenance charge, because ultimately at the end of the day, software needs, especially software for something large like ERP, needs to be constantly developed. And the funding for that development generally comes from the annual maintenance charge that is levied by the software providers. Subscription licensing, completely different model. It's a rental of the rights to use software over a time period, for instance, monthly. Now, of course, the way that this is paid is generally not monthly. People will pay annually in advance, for instance, for that sort of thing. Okay, so let's have a little look at what the current buying pattern is. So first of all, subscription is catching up with license purchase. Obviously, there's a lot of history behind the license purchase model. So there's a lot of perpetual licensing out there in the marketplace, but most software these days is coming under the gaze of subscription. Consumer software has it cracked. Most individual consumers who have to buy software, they will buy it on a subscription basis, generally because of the global credit problem, And very much consumer software is a far more emotional thing, emotional decision that subscription has got in there very, very quickly. However, commercial software is getting there. As I said, license purchase has got a lot of history behind it, but subscription is catching up very quickly. If we look globally, outside the UK, subscription is a lot more prevalent than it is in the UK. We've obviously got a lot of experience around the world, and we can see this in our own sales figures. So we can see in America, in Europe, in Australia, etc. There is a lot more, it's almost predominantly subscription pricing these days. In the UK, there appears to be an objection, historical though that may be, for going to the subscription model. So let's have a look at why there is the reluctance. In our assessment of this, we believe there are four main reasons why companies in the SME sector continue with this perpetual purchasing model. One, first of all, autonomy. People want to have a system that is unique to them, and they want to make sure that they have control of it. They upgrade when they want to upgrade. By the way, it must be said that with a lot of these factors that we've identified here, of course, they are not all grounded in fact. A lot of it is still very emotional, and a lot of it can be countered very easily. So they want to have a system that's unique to them. The funny thing here, of course, is the fact that you don't have to have a perpetual license in order to do that. If you want to control over when you want to upgrade, you don't have to have a perpetual license for that either. Okay, security. We all want to keep the cyber devils out, of course we do, but it's very interesting to note that there is a lot of people historically in the UK have thought that the best way of doing that is to make sure that their hardware is on site and they purchase everything for themselves, and that all of the hacking is identified with the new modern subscription type licensing. That, of course, cannot be true. And equally, people like to have the ownership control of their data. And again, they equate that emotionally with the fact of having a machine that they have control of within their premises. Cost, long-term cost justification. Historically, people have used this long-term cost justification model. However, I will show you in a little bit that this is not necessarily the case anymore. And total cost comparison models will always advantage the perpetual license, but the subscription is gaining fast. And good old conservatism. We've never done this before. We've always bought our software on a perpetual license basis. So therefore, why should we change now? So before we go any further, I think it is worth identifying the fact that there are two distinct parts to this. You heard me in the last slide talking a little bit about where the hardware is, okay? This talk actually is primarily intended to talk about the commercial side, but there is, of course, a technical side to this, and these two do get confused very quickly. So first of all, a few myths to bust. If you're accessing your system over the internet, then it's got to be subscription based, hasn't it? Well, no, not by definition. Just because something is accessed over the internet, that doesn't mean it has to be subscription. Equally, if something is on premise, it doesn't have to be a perpetual license that you purchase. Those are very much seen to go together, but these days that's not the case. Cloud equals hosted, not in everyone's dictionary. Okay, a lot of people will say that, a lot of vendors will say that they have a hosted system or they have a cloud system, and these don't necessarily go together. And as we can see from the next question, all hosting is the same. Well, patently it's not. A lot of the pure cloud systems that are being advertised are seen as public hosting. So in other words, a multi-tenanted solution where you do not have total control over everything. The vendor is in control of your system. They do the upgrades when they want to do them because they're upgrading many systems all at the same time within the same environment. However, a lot of systems these days, of course, are privately hosted. And this effectively is just putting your system that used to be mainly as an on-premise system into the cloud, so it's accessible over the internet very easily. Okay, so what is the choice? And as I said before, I want to concentrate mainly on the commercial side of this rather than the hardware. So I'm not going to argue too much as to where your server ought to be or not. This is really all about the commercial decision of how you're going to pay for your software. So on the purchase side, you have a one-off cost, as I mentioned before, usually with an annual maintenance element. And historically, this usually ends up being a capital decision internally within the organization. Subscription or rental, monthly cost, clearly no upfront outlay, which is one of the big advantages. And therefore, this usually means it's a revenue decision within the organization. And quite frequently, this is subordinated down to individual departments rather than being something that the top management team necessarily have to make a decision on. So the question really is there a choice? Because with a lot of vendors, they will have made this decision already. So are they going to sell their software via a perpetual license, or are they going to sell it via a subscription? And the internals of that vendor, the way they are, the way they're organized, the way they are funded, usually makes this choice for them. But as far as we are concerned, of course, we believe there is a choice. It's very important to have the choice. It's very important to have flexibility within your system, not only within the software itself, but within the way that it is purchased. So the model that we put forward is can be license purchase or subscription. As far as we're concerned, we're agnostic about this. This is really a comfort thing with regards to the client. It's not something that I believe that we as the vendor should be dictating one way or the other. Should it be hosted or on premise? Again, with priority, with Meditech, you can have this on either, and it is a client's choice, not a choice of the vendor. And equally, how you pay for the software should not dictate how it is deployed. Okay, and so you can have, as far as we are concerned, any combination of location of server and software purchasing regime. So fundamentally, what are the differences? So purchasing, you own the license rights perpetually. The cost of the license is paid normally in the first year, and the ability to upgrade is linked with payment of the annual maintenance. So continue the annual maintenance, and of course you will continue to get the advantage of all the constant upgrades. Subscription, allowed to use the license while you pay the monthly fee. Stopping the monthly fee, stopping paying the monthly fee will clearly cease your access to the software. Monthly fee is sometimes annually paid. That's just down to the ease of use of the invoicing. And upgrades are sometimes imposed by the vendor. As mentioned before, some vendors will impose this. As far as we're concerned, we don't do this. But very importantly, the ability to increase and decrease user numbers as you go along, whether it's on a monthly or a quarterly or an annual basis, is a lot easier when you're looking at a subscription model rather than a purchase license or perpetual license model. So again, looking at the differences, now we're coming down to the actual pounds and pennies. So how much is this going to cost using one or other of the two different models that we're looking at? Well, first of all, the perpetual license purchase and maintenance. Clearly, within the first year, the license cost is paid, but after that, subsequent to the first year, then obviously you get the software annual maintenance charge. And so you can see how the cost rises over time. Subscription, by a completely different model, so no upfront cost, but just a monthly / annual subscription. Now, clearly, those two models are going to cross over at some point. So ultimately, using the old traditional long-term cost justification model, the license purchase and maintenance may well come out better if you're looking over a 5-year period, for instance. However, there are lots of ways that this is going to be changing. And that is because the world has changed around us. Nobody can get away from the fact that we've had a pandemic. We're still in the middle of the pandemic. Looks like it's coming back again. So there's lots of things around this. The way that businesses have been operating and the way that businesses have to be operating in the future. So pre-pandemic, a lot of strategic thinking. Boundaries around the way businesses work have been very well known and well known for a long time. Long-term efficiency has been absolutely up at the top of a lot of manufacturing industries' thought processes for very many years now. Businesses are always looking to squeeze every penny out of their investment. The quality of process has been very important in the past. So if you're going to cost justify something, the quality of the process of doing that cost justification, people have built whole careers on this sort of thing. And so this has been very important in the past. However, from this year onwards, things have changed. Quick fire decisions are absolutely vitally important these days. Nobody can make a decision today and know that it's going to be valid in a month's time. Okay, so decisions that are made today quite frequently are revisited on a monthly, weekly, even daily basis. Continuity is not assured. And we have seen lots of businesses and some very major businesses go out of business. So short-term survival is absolutely paramount these days and is at the top of everyone's thought processes. Budgeting for the quarter, okay. A lot of manufacturing businesses in the past have put a lot by their annual budgeting processes to try and make their thinking as long-term as they possibly can. These days, budgeting for the quarter and even budgeting for the month is far more likely. Business strength is absolutely paramount. So the ability to maintain the strength of your business is paramount, and agility of your business to be able to move according to the circumstances is actually more important these days sometimes than the ability of the organization. And every organization is cash flowing like never before. So what does this mean? Going back to our picture of the cost implications of the two models that we've got here, well, of course, what this means is that we cannot foretell the future like we used to be able to, which means that all of a sudden, the comparison between our two models looks radically different. If you're not going to look, and this is now looking just over perhaps a 2-year period rather than a 5-year period. Over a 2-year period, the subscription model is looking a lot healthier. So let me just quickly wind up with a few conclusions. First of all, business strength is becoming much more important these days. Make sure you have the choice in whatever you do, whether it's an ERP software solution, whether it's CRM, whether it's a construction software, whether it's even buying your office or bringing on board your office software. Make sure you have a choice. Don't lock yourself into something, and agility has a massive value, but equally it also has a cost. And we can see that with the comparison of the two models that we've just been looking at, perpetual and subscription. There is a cost to agility, a long-term cost, but absolutely agility is absolutely vital these days. And everyone must keep hold of their cash. That's how you strengthen your business and make sure it's there to continue in the years to come. So finally, even in the ERP world, where everyone thought that it would take such a long time for subscription pricing to come in, there is a place for subscription pricing in the ERP world. And that concludes what I wanted to say. And I think I'll just hand over back to Ashley.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Phil. Firstly, thank you loads for taking the time to take us through that talk. Really interesting. Raised some great points there. So we are going to kick off with question and answers, but just before we do that, I just want to mention a couple of things. I noticed people are joining this call or this webinar halfway through. We have recorded the whole thing and we'll share that with you later this week or perhaps early next week. So please do look forward to that, whether you want to review or you're catching it for the first time. So kicking off question and answers, we've had a couple that have come in via the chat and a few that I wanted to sort of ask you about. A couple of the questions are based around that model or the graph that you showed with subscriptions being initially a lower cost versus a outright implementation and where that really meets. I guess what the main question is, when does that meet? Can you give us some sort of, it's a really difficult one, I appreciate that, but can you give us some sort of idea of when that might meet? And Phil, just your mic's turned off in the meantime, don't worry.
Okay, so it is a how long's a piece of string type question, but normally we tend to work on the principle that somewhere between 3 and 5 years is going to be that crossover point. It does depend on the conditions of the particular implementation that you're doing. Some implementations require more software and more additions, etc., and more consultancy time. But if you're just looking at the software purchase, depending on the terms and conditions, yes, it's generally anywhere between 3 and 5 years.
It's interesting because obviously we're speaking about business software, but the thing that springs to mind for me that was probably one of the early subscription models, or at least that I was using, is kind of like your music library. You used to buy CDs which would last lifetime and you evaluate whether that might have been more expensive with a subscription or not. But yeah, there we go. That's just how my brain works. But one of our attendees has asked, can they install a subscription ERP license on an on-premise server installation?
As far as we are concerned, yes. You won't be able to do that with all vendors. As I said, one of the things that we concentrate on is flexibility. And so we want all of our customers to have the greatest flexibility possible. So there may well be some very valid reasons why they want to be their software to be on premise. It could be the quality of their broadband where they're located. It could be that they actually don't have very many people who they want to access the system over the internet. They're very closed in the way they want to use their system, in which case there's some of the arguments for an internet or cloud-based server tend to go out the window. Okay,
brilliant. There's a couple more questions. We have got time for some more, so if anyone wants to fire those in, please do. Just briefly, I want to just pull away from one of our audience questions. Talking about security, and one of our previous speakers from Epicor was speaking about how the cloud and new modern digital AI, all that sort of stuff, is viewed upon as kind of being almost people spying on you, and you might be reluctant to commit. I know you had a slide that was sort of talking on that, but what do you, when you speak to people and they sort of bring up that point, they may be covering webcams, they may be reluctant to commit to subscription models online. What do you sort of say to counter that?
Okay, on the security side, there is a big thought process in a lot of traditional businesses that if I've got the server in-house, I've got total control over it. But of course, the trouble is, even with an in-house server, you're going to want to give access over the internet to your own staff, sometimes to your customers and suppliers. And so therefore, you're automatically opening up your software to the outside world anyway. What it must be said is that the cloud provision or the hosting provision these days actually accesses or uses security software that is far in advance of anything that you're likely to be able to either get hold of or afford if you're using your own in-house server. So generally, if you are very security conscious, I would suggest that actually a hosted or a cloud solution is probably a lot more secure than you're ever going to be able to achieve on an on-premise system.
Right, okay, brilliant. And I'm going to try and do a 2-for-1 here. So talking about commitment to a subscription model, but ignoring the commercial aspects, are there any major disadvantages to the subscription model? So commitment may be one of them. You may think, oh, I don't want to be tied into that. But what are the major disadvantages of a subscription model for you? Okay,
well, this was one of the barriers to subscription modeling, to the subscription model coming to the ERP world, because let's face it, nobody wants to change their ERP system very frequently. Okay, if you change it once every 20 years, that's too often. And so consequently, one of the advantages of subscription pricing is the agility side. So the ability to say, oh, I'm going to stop using this software and I'm going to move to something else very quickly and easily. But in the ERP world, you really don't want to do that. So that was seen as a disadvantage, really, I think, to the subscription model in the early days. But I think that there are, I don't think, any really major aspects to the downsides to the subscription pricing. There is always the fear that, oh, if I, for whatever reason, I stop the subscription invoices or I stop paying them, then I haven't got my system. But at the end of the day, realistically, that's never going to happen.
Great, thanks, Phil. We've run over by a couple of minutes, and I'm conscious of your time and our attendees. But if you can give me almost a 1, 2, 3 word answer for this one, what you, because I think it'd be a value to our attendees. But what are you seeing the split in your experience in terms of people that are subscribing versus purchasing outright in some sort of percentage format, maybe?
I would say that our experience now is it's about 50-50. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks for that. So look, that rounds us up. So again, I'm going to thank you so much for your time, Phil, and thank all of our attendees for watching our second webinar. We have one left, which is presented by Azure. So please do tune into that one. It's in half an hour's time, and we'll send you a link via email. In the meantime, head back to our online event. I'm about to put a link in the chat. In fact, I'll do it now. That's a link to Meditech's stand. If you want to explore their software further, jump on a call with one of their experts. You can do that on their stand. They've got a couple of other bits of content on there that you might want to check out as well. As I said in my previous call, Zoom can be a bit funny for posting links in the chat. So you might have to copy and paste that one into your preferred browser. If not, we have sent you a link to our online event and you can access all the stands from there. So without going on for too long, again, thank you so much for attending. And Phil, thanks for your time. I'm going to finish things off here. I hope you're having a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheerio.